Are you aware of that conversation?
Yeah, I don't live under a rock.
Our club's position is that we will not be trading him under any circumstances.
My job is pretty clear. Make Hawthorn win.
Wouldn't be very good at hide and seek, Mitch, I reckon. Marco Polo. Polo! Marco!
I'm not a body language expert, but it's fair to say I don't think this deal is getting done by the looks of Tom Petroro there.
The reality is now that the gloves are off. All's fair and love and war.
When you promise a club captain to put himself through this, to this extreme, you've got to come up with a way to get the deal done.
That's the way things work. I mean, if you throw a punch, expect one to come back your way pretty quickly, especially at our club.
Get your tickets to round one. Essendon and Hawthorn will be spicy.
What you're referring to at the end of last year, does it add spice? Probably.
Friday night is a big date for all sorts of reasons as Essendon and Hawthorn renew hostilities in round one. Zach Merrett shared so much of this with us. Zach, it's great to have you back on 360. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And Will Day was almost a teammate. Will, it's nice to see you.
Good to be here.
Just tonight's breaking news before we delve any further. Were you aware of the Dylan Moore-Connor McDonald's night in a jail cell in Arizona before today?
Yeah, I was aware, yep. And I, as a mate, ahead of a teammate, was just trying to help them through it all and help them sort of get through what they were going through. So, yeah, I was. It's
been costly for Dylan, hasn't it, in particular?
Yeah, I think so. But at the end of the day, it's all out now and he can sort of move on, and he's still a great leader within our club, and I don't think too many people that know him are going to change their view on him as a person.
All right. Zach, do you feel that you're going to be the centre of attention on Friday night? I reckon Brad was only half joking when he said you're probably entitled to a percentage of the gate.
Yeah, well, the boys did joke about that as well, so I might hold Brad accountable to that comment. No, I mean, it's where, not for those reasons, but it's definitely where you want to be. It's why we go through all those hard training sessions in the off-season, and in days when you wake up and you don't want to train, is to be in front of 90,000 at the MCG in round one. So I'm looking forward to it. Do you have any trepidation around what the reaction might be? A little bit. It's just probably such a unique situation that hasn't really happened very often. So all I know is when I'm on the ground, it'll just be a massive loud noise and blur. Obviously, in footy, the G is so big that fans behind the fence, you can't hear explicitly what they're saying. So it'll be a buzz like it normally is when we play Hawthorn or any other big Melbourne club. So, yeah, I'm excited, looking forward to the game. To have 3 debutants named today as well also adds a little bit of perspective. Being the oldest player on the list now and seeing young kids get the call up, makes it also all the better, and can't wait to get involved with them.
You did live this with us through this position, and you coming back this year is great. Has it been difficult? Would you say it was a difficult period of time? Yeah, it was definitely difficult, I think, and we don't have all night to go through everything, but I think, there's no doubt I was struggling a little bit in the back end of the year last year personally, trying to find and see the light for where we're going as a footy club and myself, to then get to the point of asking for a trade. That wasn't the hardest part. I think the hard part was all the intensity in the media and probably some narratives or some discussion and points that were made I thought were pretty unfair and probably a fair way from the truth. That was hard to live with, and then seeing how that puts pressure on your family and friends around you was certainly a unique situation I've never been in. So I don't know, it's hard to separate the truth from what's happening around you. And Melbourne's such a footy bubble, which is amazing at times, but also there's that counter on the other side of the coin that is difficult. So, I think it was tough, but I'm pretty comfortable with most of the things that went down, and there's things I certainly learned as well. So sitting here, we grilled you pretty hard on a couple of nights, and you were adamant that you were going to stay and spend your time at Essendon when you could tell us otherwise. There's clearly some other stuff going on in the background. So that in itself is a difficult position. When you accept, and you kept fronting up to your credit, but you put yourself in a difficult position there. Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you're the club captain, you're having these constant battles internally around what's best for you and your footy and what's best for the footy club. You want to represent them as best you can. And probably I got to a point, to be honest, that I never thought I was going to reach. I've seen plenty of players and staff before me reach a point they felt they needed to remove themselves from the club and go to a different place. And as I said, I never thought I'd get there. And unfortunately, I did at the end of last year. And that was why those next few months unfolded after a few times we were on this show. We'll get to where you are now in a moment. But that day on October the 15th, which we've seen some vision there and Tommy Petruccio, your manager, is in the Hawthorn rooms. It's really graphic stuff. It sort of summed the story up about the desperation to try and get you to the Hawthorn Footy Club. Where were you when all this was unfolding? Where were you there? Were you at home waiting by the phone? Where was your position?
Yeah, I mean, Tom's such a passionate and loyal guy. He was fighting tooth and nail to get the job done, and I was just sitting at home with my wife and my cousin, and sort of watching the Petrarca deal happen, and then the Curnow deal, and then it looked like it was going to happen, then it didn't, and then the clock ticked over 6:30, and then pretty quickly you're trying to wrap your head around that you're going back and what that may look like. So. Yeah, it was a weird time. I had my nana's funeral 2 days later, which was probably the hardest part of that 2-week period. So there's a lot of emotion flowing. Not anger. I think I signed that deal 4 years prior. They committed to me massively. So there was no anger around the decision making to hold me to the contract. It was more probably a little bit of disappointment around how things had played out publicly and some conversations that had been had behind closed doors that were aired in the public eye. So, yeah, there was definitely some disappointment and frustration initially, but you get home, get around my family and friends at my nana's funeral, and then by the time I got back to Melbourne, it was sort of getting my head around going back.
I think what we're all interested in is then what happens next. And we've been in footy clubs, and they're places that I think move on really quickly. That's my history anyway. But a couple of your teammates had some things to say and they were disappointed, which I think is fair enough. I understand that. How do you go about resolving that? How do you resolve the relationship and get this back to a point where you can put it behind you and move on?
Yeah, I think that's probably been the most asked question, those two articles that were public. I think that was one of the things that I was a little bit frustrated at the start that was public. I think there was conversations that could have been had behind closed doors. Those two boys were understandably frustrated and understandably, if I was in that position, I probably would be the same, that your captain's looking to explore his options or leave the footy club. So their reactions were fully entitled, I think.
It was Mason Redmond and
Nick Martin, yeah. And we caught up off the back of the trade not going through. We had dinner.
How soon after?
On Welsh's card, which was nice. It's probably 2 or 3 weeks later, we caught up with Andy McGrath and Kyle Langford and just talked about everything. They put all their cards on the table around their frustrations, and then I sort of gave them a little bit more context than they probably knew, and I think the learning for me was I should have been more upfront through the back end of the season with how I was feeling and what I felt I needed to do, just to give them more understanding. I think they were sort of sitting there. We obviously spend every day together. We go through a lot of hard times together. I think they felt a little bit in the dark. So, as I said, completely understand their position. For me, it would just be nice to have those conversations behind closed doors.
Can you play with the same passion for Essendon as you have done previously, given all the water that's gone under the bridge?
Yeah, I mean, I still absolutely love and adore the club. I think I talked to this. I think Gaz might have pointed out, how can you love the club but want to leave? I think the club's an evolving beast that is made up of 150 years and so many past champions, staff, volunteers, and 100,000 members every year. So the club isn't individuals. I think for me, the club is this bigger thing. It's 16 premierships, and for me, I'll have the same passion come round one or come Friday night.
I don't think there's having had a bit to do with it. There's not a question in the world about that. There's been a bit of a misrepresentation along the way. I think football's at a stage now where players will continue to explore their options, and whether they do get to where they need to go or whether they don't, it's not for us to have to... We can be disappointed as Essendon supporters, but, I mean, this is the world we live in these days. And I just asked Zach on the way, and you're looking forward to it, and you said you live for it. I mean, you are front and centre Friday night in a great rivalry with a football club who hate each other, and you're going to be in the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, you play footy to play in big finals and grand finals and big games, and ultimately we're an entertainment sport. The theatre of round one against the Hawks is going to be great, I think, for all fans. Whether you're an Essendon or a Hawthorn fan or you're a neutral fan, I think it's going to be an amazing game, and the theatre around it's going to add a little bit of spice as well, which is great.